It's relatively much easier than the previous Gemaras. Good Tvach, good Yar. We're learning as a schus for Shlema Filan Chaya Baserach. We're starting the new parak on Pei Gimel Amid Beis, parak Kol Karbanis Hatzibur. I think that's what it's called. No, yeah, Kol Karbanis Hatzibur. That's the mission. Kol Karbanis Hatzibur v'Yachid Boy Min Haaretz and Michutz Laaretz. All Karbanis Tzibur, well, whether it's a carbon Tzibur or carbon Yachid, it can come either from Eretz Yisrael, it can be sourced from Eretz Yisrael, from Chutz Laaretz, Menachos, from Menachos. It doesn't have to be Bedavka from the new, it could be from the old, it could be, I'm saying, it doesn't have to be from the old, it could be from the new. Chutz Min Ha'omer Shtei Alechem. The Omer and the Shtei Alechem, She'enim Boyin Ela Min HaChodesh, U'Min Haaretz. Oh, Ketvach, Ketjar. We just started the Mishnah on Pei Gimel Amid Beis. And we're saying that all Karbanis, there's no restriction on them. They don't have to be Bedavka from Chodesh, they can be from Yashar, they can be from Eretz Yisrael, they can be from Chutz Laaretz, except for the Omer, which is on the second day of Pesach. Very good timing for this. And the Shtei Alechem, which comes on Shavuos. And as we've learned, the Omer comes from Sa'irim, and it's to be Matir Chulin, Chodesh for Chulin, and the Shtei Alechem comes from Chitin, and it's to be Matir Chodesh for Kodsha. So those two Karbanis, those two Minchas, She'enim Boyin Ela Min HaChodesh Min Haaretz, they have to be both from Chodesh, they have to be from the new crop, and they have to come from Eretz Yisrael. For Kulan She'enim Boyin Ela Min HaMuvcha, and all of them, which it's not exactly clear what that is referring to, but Rashi says, I think Rashi says in the what do you call it? In the Ksav Yad, I think he says it's talking about all Menachos. They come. They have to come from the best stuff. What's considered the places? What produce is considered the best? Machnes vezitcha alpha l'soilus. The places machnes or mekanis and zitcha. These two places are the aleph. They're the aleph class, the A plus as far as wheat is concerned. Shnilahen, and second to them is Apuryayim Bebika. That's the place Apuryayim in the Bika. It means if there's not, if there isn't anything in the first class, then you go to the second best. But while you can bring it from anywhere, these places, this is where they actually brought them from. This was the top notch. Zach the Gemara. We're on Pei Gimel Amid Beis. We just started the new parak, which said that you can bring all karbanos from Chodesh or from Yoshan or from Eretz Yisrael, from outside Eretz Yisrael, except for the Omer and the Shtei Alechem that only came from Eretz Yisrael and only from Chodesh. Our mission is Cholik on the Tanya and the Bryce of the Tanya. Omer haba min Yoshan kosher. Omer that came from Yoshan is kosher. Shtei Alechem away from the Yoshan ksheris, and the same thing with the Shtei Alechem. Just two, so if it's a Lashon Rabin, if it comes from Yoshan, it's kosher. Our Mishnah said that the Omer and the Shtei Alechem, it said definitively that they must come from Chodesh. It didn't say it as optional. This price is saying it has to come. It could even be from Yoshan. Elishachisa mitzvah. The Brisa says it can come from Yoshan. They should come from Chodesh, but it's mechusa the mitzvah. It's not lechatchila. The Brisa says, where do you learn that out from? The pasuk says should be makriv the mincha bikurecha. Takriv is a lotion of riboy. Even if you have stored away in your attic from the Yoshan, you could even use that for the Omer. The pasuk says, you should bring it from your dwelling, First of all, that says not from Chutz Laaretz. Let me see if there's an emergency. My sister called twice. I'm sorry. Hello, is everything okay? Okay, because I'm in the middle of a share, so I'll talk to you afterwards, okay? Um,
No, I'm saying that if you could just you're saying or something.
so it says, first of all, the Meshusayim tells you that you can't bring from Chutz La'aretz. Meshusayim afilu min aliyah, and we learn that from Meshusayim also, even from that which is stored away. Correct, the Gemara, what do you mean? You just said the same, you made two limudim from the same pasuk. Ha'afikte.
You're doing the same
That
thing.
you just said that it's coming to tell you that you can't bring Shtei Alechem from Chutz La'aretz, and then you say you can that it's coming time Meshusayim that could even be from that which you stored away. Amakro Taviu. No, that's not coming from Meshusayim, it's coming from the other word, Taviu. Afilu min aliyah. Correct. We had this in the previous parak that Taviu is coming to tell you that all of the Menachos you bring all need an isaron of silas. That tells you the proper amount, the ratio. So how can you say it's coming to tell you this then also afilu min aliyah? So come on, in can lichtachor Tavi, my Taviu, shma min atati. We could tackle them both of them. Fact the marva ksiv rachis lemitzvah. V'ksiv rachis. It says rachis. Rachis seems to mean that it should be the first. It should be from chadash. So how could you say it's optional? It's only a mitzvah to do from chadash to bring the ayman and shtei lechem from chadash. So Gemara when it says rachis, it's also a mitzvah. It's only chatchila, but we learn from the other psukim that it b'diavad it's good even from yash. Haksiv chadasha. It says. Chadasha. That's the pasuk. Ad Menachos Hashabbos Hashvius Tisbru Chamishim Yoim. V'krafta mincha chadasha l'Hashem. A new mincha. A mincha chadasha means it's from Kadosh l'Chayra. Just want to read that pasuk because we're doing Sfira. We're mamash middle of Sfira. Second, Hani boy leich l'Tanya. V'nasav Rebbe Kiva Amru. Shtei alechem haboyis min hayoshen ksherus. That shtei alechem that comes from Yoshen is kosher. Manu mikayim chadasha te chadasha l'chol ha-menachos. It's coming to tell you that it should be the first of all the menachos, meaning that you can't bring any menachos, any minchas until you bring the shtei alechem, that you can't bring karbanos from chodesh until the shtei alechem is brought. So Gemara, ad kamle pligi ela b'chodesh. So we have a machlokes, right? Our Mishnah says that you cannot bring the Omer and the Shtei Alechem from Yashan. It's not going to be kosher. And the Brisa says it's a mitzvah to bring from Chodesh, but you yoytze even with Yashan. So the only argument is only about, there were two things that we said in the Mishnah. First of all, our Mishnah said that the Omer and the Shtei Alechem has to be from Chodesh and not from old Tfuah. And we also said that it has to come from Eretz Yisrael. Al V'aretz loy pligi. But the Gemara is observing that the machlokes between the Brisa and the Mishnah is only gabi the din of Chodesh and Yasha. But the gabi the Shtei Alechem and the Omer only coming from Eretz Yisrael, they're not arguing. The Omer Shtei Alechem Eretz in the Chutz La'aretz loy. Even the Brisa agrees that that's not allowed. Come on, Gemara, who is this like our Mishnah and the Brisa? The Leiki Aitana. There's a Brisa there's a Tana that even disagrees with that. The Tanya. Rabbi Yisba Yehuda Omer. Omer ba mi Chutz La'aretz. He says the Omer could even come from Chutz La'aretz. Omani mekayim kisavayu la'aretz. The pasuk says that you first start bringing the Omer kisavayu la'aretz. The pasuk says, "Dabal bnei Yisrael mataleim kisavayu la'aretz asher nyosim lechem ksartem es kir beisim es Omer reish ksuchem alakoyin." It's only when you come to Eretz Yisrael. It sounds like you can only bring from Eretz Yisrael. So what does he say? The Gemara says, what the pasuk is telling you is not that the omer, the barley, and the wheat for the shtei alechem has to come from Eretz Yisrael, but it's telling you that there was no chiyuv of omer until it came to Eretz Yisrael. The kasavar, but he holds that you can bring. But once it started, it's even b'chutz la'aretz. And this man Amar, and this is obviously a great source of controversy, right? We all, I don't know, I shouldn't say we all. I grew up without the concept of Chodesh and Yashin. We said we're outside of Eretz Yisrael. what is this Chodesh and Yashin about? It was just some couple of people that hacked the cup about it, but we didn't know of such things. But this Madama says, Chodesh and Chutz La'aretz is deraisa, midaraisa. We are not allowed to eat from Chodesh until, like we said before, this Gemara is B'shas, the time of the Beis Hamikdash is when they bring the Omer. After the time of the Beis Hamikdash is after the second day of Yom Tov. You could, at the second day of Yom Tov, when that day is over, then you could start eating Chodesh. So he holds that's midaraisa. The Sid Moshe Vesechem, Kol Makom Shata Yoshve, Mashma. And when it says Kisavayu, Zman Bihi. And when it says Kisavayu, that just means that's when we started, the Isser of Chodesh started. V'kivin daraisa Yekruvi Nami Makrivin. According to this man, the Amar, it's the two things are Tali Zebazeh, which is not exactly clear why it should be like that, but he says that the din that you could bring the Omer even from Chutz La'aretz is only because he holds that there is a Isser Chodesh in Chutz La'aretz. That means there's no way, you can't conceive of the idea that you could bring the Omer from Chutz La'aretz if there is no Isser Chodesh in Chutz La'aretz. It only can come from a place where the Isser Chodesh exists. So therefore the two things are linked, and he says there is, the Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda holds, there's Isser Chodesh midaraisa outside of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you could bring the Omer from Chutz La'aretz. So it's not Hasa. Shoimrei Svichen. The people who watched these Svichen, this is during Shavuos, there used to be these, there would be, you're not allowed to cultivate crops on Shavuos, so they would appoint watchmen to make sure that those things, the things that grew spontaneously, would be available for the Yom. So Noitlin Schara Mitrumas HaLishka. They would get paid from the monies that was in the Lishka that was available for Tzarchei Tzibur. Rami Bar Chama le Rav Chizda, Rami Bar Chama asked Rav Chizda. Tnam, we learned. Shomer Svicha b'Shvius. The Shomer Svicha that we just discussed on Shvius, then it's called Mitrumas HaLishka. That says, it repeats this assertion that they would get paid from Mitrumas HaLishka Raminu. La'achla v'loy l'sreifa. That the Perish Shvius are only for eating and not for burning. And what was taken for the Omer was burnt. So how are you able to take from Svicha, from Shvius? How are they able to guard the Svicha Shvius to use for the Omer? When you took for the Omer, you would burn it, and you're not allowed to burn the Shemitah, produce. Says, so what do you want to do? The Torah said you have to separate the Omer. The only thing that you have available, l'chayra, is the Svichei Shvius, and you're saying, okay, since you're not allowed to burn it, so therefore there shouldn't be an Omer. Am I saying that it should be batal? Laisi midash taked. Said, so let's bring it from last year's. We'll take from the previous years. So this man Amar obviously is going the machlekes on the previous plot that we said. One man Amar said you could take the Omer from Yashon, B'diavad. The other one said you could. This man Amar obviously is saying that you could take from last year's B'diavad. So there, no, that's not going to help. Be'ina Carmel V'leka. The Torah says legabe the Omer. It says and the Shtei Lechem. The Takar Minkas Bikurim Hashem Aviv Koli Ba'Ish Garish Carmel. And we touched Carmel in two ways. Either it means Carmel, a soft pillow, or else it means Carmel is it means soft. It means I forgot that there was another drasha on the words, a play on the words, and it means something soft and fresh. So if you're going to take from the previous years, it's no longer, it was sitting on the vines, it was sitting on the stalk. Since the previous year, it's going to already be dried out. Correct? Why don't you, the previous year, before it was Shemitah, cut it off while it's fresh? And then it will be Yaitze Carmel. Amakra Kamer Takra, Be'ina Carmel B'Shas HaKrava. The Leka. He says it's not enough that it was Carmel. When you cut it the previous year, it has to be soft even now at the time that you're being makar of it. Itma. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Yechon Amar Carmel Takrif. He says you learn out. Like we just said, from the pasuk says Carmel Takrif, that tells you that you can't bring from the previous year, and that's why we said you have to put the shayrim to make sure that the svichim are available for the Omer, in spite of the fact that it's going to be burnt. You still have to do from this year because you can't use from previous years because you're not Yetzer Carmel. Well, that's Omer Reishis Ketzircha. He says from a different pasuk, the pasuk says Reishis Ketzircha from the beginning of Yetzirah. Reish Ketzircha v'loy Soif Ketzircha. It has to be from the beginning of the Ketzirah, not the end of the Ketzirah. So if you're waiting from what was from the previous year, that's not going to be Yotze. You can't use that for the Omer. Moisev Rava asked on, I think he asked on Rabbi Yochanan, that he says this new limud, I'm sorry, on Rabbi Lazar, who said Reishis Ketzircha. The entire Minchas Bikurim and Minchas Omer Akasam Dam. The Torah says if you're going to be makar the Minchas Bikurim, it's talking about the Minchas Omer. Mehechan Hi Ba. Where does it come from? In Asayrim. It's coming to tell you that it comes from Sayrim. And how do I know that the Omer comes from barley and not from wheat? We had this in the Gemara earlier. It says of in Mitzrayim. It says that the Sa'iris was Aviv. It says that it was soft by Barad. It says it was soft and therefore it didn't break. And it says Aviv L'Doris. Ma'av Mitzrayim. It says Aviv L'Gabi Omer. Ma'av Mitzrayim Sa'ir. Ma'av L'Doris Ein Yibah Elam Nasar. That tells you that the Omer comes from Sa'ir. The Kiva Omer, no, there's a different source. Matzinu Yachid Shemevi Chayvasam and Achitin. Umevi Chayvasam Nasairim. There are Yechidim that are Mechoyev to bring Chitin, which is on a regular silas, on a regular mincha. Umevi Chayvasam and Nasairim. I believe that is by, I think Rashi says, by the minchas Kenoyas of a site. Ba'af Tzibur Mevi Chayvasam and Achitin, Mevi Chayvasam and Nasairim. The same thing by the Tzibur. It must be that they also. It mirrors that of a yachid, that there's a chayva that comes from chitin, and then from siren. If you can say the aimer comes from chitin, so you're left without a applicable mirror image of the yachid. You're not going to have a siren that comes from the tzibur. So therefore, it's muchach that the siren, that the aimer comes from siren. That's a second shot. Davar acher, emat the aimer ba menachitin. If you're going to say that the Omer comes from Chitin, Ein Shtei Alechem Bikurim, then the Shtei Alechem, which comes from Chitin, are not going to be the first thing to come from Chitin, because you'll already have brought the Omer on the second day of Pesach, on Tes Zayin Benisan, you'll already have brought the Chitin of the Omer. And we says about the Shtei Alechem that it was the first thing to be brought from Chitin. So Zak Gemara, Alma Mishom Bikurimhu. That must so according to this last sheet of how we know that the Omer is comes from Sa'irim is because the Shtei HaLechem is called Bikurim. It's the first thing that comes from the Chitin. So you see, it's because of Bikurim. This is like Rabbi Eliezer and not like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan had said, because it says he had said, Rabbi Eliezer said Reisha Ketzircha. It has to be the first thing that comes from, and not Lulei Soif Ketzircha. But according to, if you say Carmel, why can't you learn it out? That's Rashi Pshat. The place has a whole different Pshat, which is that it's shver on both of the original of those Pshat. So Gemara Tiyufta. It's Taka Kasha. Tanan Has. Ain't maybe bikurim chutz mishivas haminim. You can't bring the bikurim, right? So we're talking about three things here. Let's set it up, right? There's the omer, which is we bring from barley, which allows us to eat tvua from the chodesh. Then there's the shtei halechem that comes on Shavuos, which allows us to bring karbonos from the new crop. And then there's the bikurim. Each person, those are things of the tzibur. Then the bikurim is each person when the first fruits grow in his personal sada, he has to bring bikurim to Eretz Yisrael. So Gemara is saying this din of bikurim is only in the shivas haminim, and maybe in bikurim chutz me shivas haminim. V'loy mi tmorim shebaharim, v'loy mi perish shebamalkim. You don't bring them from the dates that grow on the mountains. Rashi says Um, the Baharim, the Sukkim, Shemakim Tvua. That means it's actually the regular Rashi, the Rashi on top. Avishei Meshiva Aminim, the Dvash Hainu Dvash Tmarim. Hani Shebaharim Shebamakim Einam Min HaMuvchel Avishei Hushim. The dates that grow on the mountains are weaker. They're not as good, and the Paris, meaning the Tvua that grows in valleys, is also not good. So you shouldn't bring your bikurim from them. It's not clear. The Rishonim argue about does that mean if you have only if you have choices of bringing from better, or does it mean that you're b'chlal potter from them? In the Gemara, it sounds like you're b'chlal potter from these chushim, from these not good bikurim. Amar Ula says, "And heavy loy kiddush. If he brings from them, it's not makudish. It's not considered bikurim." The also of Rabba v'ka'amar lo l'hashmaitzim. Rabbi said over this member of Ula that if you bring from these shvacha types of bikurim, from the dates in the mountains or the tvu in the valleys, you're not yoitza. Esvei. Esvei Rabbi Acha bar Abba l'Rabba. Rabbi Acha bar Abba asked Rabba, Kabin Reishish, hey Reishish l'chol ha-menachos. Torah says that it should be, this is talking about the Shtei HaLechem. The last Shtei HaLechem is called the first of all the menachos. When you bring a mincha chadash l'Hashem b'shvuos seicha, meaning at the end of the counting of the weeks, at the end of the svira, that only tells you the new wheat. Chadash l'Sa'ir minayin. That how do you know that you have to bring also a omer from the new barley? Talmud loymer chadasha. Since it says twice chadasha but legabi the shtei halechem, the second one is to tell you that also you have to bring the omer from the new fruits, from the new barley. How do you know that both of these things go before bikurim? First it says chag shavuos tasa, then afterwards it says bikurim k'tzir chit, and then you do the bikurim. How do we know that even the sa'irim you have to wait to do bikurim for them after Shavuos? The Torah says first chag kotzer bikurim masecha, which is I think that's a reference to. Which is a reference to Shavuos, right? That's when you harvest your wheat, and then it says Bikurim Masecha afterwards. But it says in that Asher Tizra Basada Shezara. That's only talking about, one would say that's only that which you planted. And how do you know that even includes that which grows on its own spontaneously? Talmud Loima Basada. The Torah says basada. Sada is a reference to a cultivated field. It tells you that you can't bring the bikurim even of a cultivated. It says basada, so even if it's not just cultivated, even if it grows on its own, anything is included in basada. Sakamara of Elia lebasada. That this only tells you something that grows in a field. How do we know to include also shebagag, something that grew on a roof, shebechurva, or grew in a rune, shebaatzetz, it grew in a pot, shebesvina, grew on a ship? Any one of these second-rate type of places of growing tvua or from the shivas aminim. Talmud lamri bekurei kol asher ba'artzachem. Anything that grows in your land is subject to bikurim. It could be brought for bikurim. So this is really going to be our problem, right? We're going to get back to this in a second. But we're seeing over here that even these second-rate type of things can be bikurim. So why did we say that the dates on the mountain and the tvua in the valleys is excluded from bikurim? But in any case, the Brisa continues. How do we know that legabi the nesachim, which is the wines, and the peres elon, the things that grow on trees? Nemar kam bikurim masecha, but nemar ba'asvacha es masecha min asada. Mela alon nechasam v'perisilan. Afkan nesacham v'perisilan. That includes also the neschachim and perisilan, that they also have to first bring bikurim. Katani mia, but the problem, like we said, is shebegav and shebechuber she'atzis shebesvina, that they are included in bikurim. So how could that be? We said before, according to Ula, maybe like Kiddush, if you bring from a second-rate place, like on a mountain or on a or in a valley, that we said the dates from the mountain and the tfuah from the valley, that it's no good. So Gemara Seifa etin the Menachos. The Gemara says no, that's talking about Menachos. It's not talking about Bikurim. So the guy, it's saying that you can bring all the end of that brisa is not saying these are the things that you can bring for Bikurim. It's saying these things are kosher for Menachos. And for Menachos, you could take a bring, doesn't have to be from the top rated, it's still kosher. Anyone who's tar in your house can eat it. Menachos are eaten only by the Zecharim of Kohanim. How can you say Kol Tov B'Veisecha? It can't be eaten by the families of Kohanim. It's only eaten by the Zichrei Kuna. In it's Kodesh Kadoshim that's eaten in the Beis Hamikdash by the Zecharim. There are two parts of the psak. L'chayiyah uksiv Kol Tov B'Veisecha. It says L'chayiyah, meaning it should be only to the Kohanim, the Zecharim of the Kohanim, and it says Kol Tov B'Veisecha, which is talking about anyone in the family. Yoichaloi haketzad. Kam mikurim kam b'menachos. When it says l'chayir, that's talking about bikurim. I'm sorry, kol tov b'veisecha, that's bikurim. Anyone in the family can eat the bikurim. When it's brought to the kohen, it doesn't have it's not kosher kosher. The kohen gets it and then he gives it to his family. And l'chayir, that's only for kohanim and zcharim. That's talking about menachos. Rav Ashi Amar kula b'menachos. No, the whole pasuk is talking about menachos. The end of the pasuk is talking about the lachmei toida, where it can be eaten by the owners. When we say it could go kol tov b'veisecha, so then the truma of the, like we said, 1 out of every 10 loaves, so 4 out of the 40 loaves that go of the toida to the kohen, that 4 out of the 40 go to the kohen, that can be given to the kohen and he could eat it, he could feed it to his family. This statement of Ula that said that a non-ideal bikurim is kosher, is not kosher. It's not mekudesh. And Rav Acha bar Abba had asked on that. That's also machlokes Amoraim, another machlokes Amoraim. Rabbi Yochanan Imhevi like Kiddush. Rabbi Yochanan says if you bring from Shvacha Bikurim, it's not Kaddish. It's as if you brought like an animal that's not a better animal. There's no din that if you brought a weaker animal by Kachim for your oilo, for your shlamim, that it's not accepted. So the same thing with the Bikurim. So Rish Lakish just said, it's like bringing an animal that you could bring a better or worse. Rabbi Yochanan in my time. Why does Rabbi Yochanan say it's no good? Rabbi Yochanan chazoi b'chaloim milso ba'al yisa amin. Rabbi Lazar said, I saw Rabbi Yochanan came to me in a chaloim, and I'm going to tell you a good var to explain Rabbi Yochanan Shita. Amar kro me reishis v'loy kol reishis. The Torah says, "May rachis you can bring from the rachis, like all rachis, not all rachis, meaning it has to be." So Rashi says, "Rachis go like all rachis." Lamute shar perish einam shivas aminim. It's coming to conclude that you can't bring for the bikurim something that's not. You don't bring from something that's not from the shivas aminim. Me'artzecha v'loikol artzecha. So that he says. Rashi says, "L'mute shalom and amufcha the shiva minim gufayu goy mitzmarim shebaharim b'shebagag shebachurba." So that is like Ula had said, and this is the explanation. Not everything that's in Artzecha is good. So that's the source for Rabbi Yochanan. Second, Rish Lakish hayatzecha mayavan. Bay. What is Rish Lakish who disagrees? He says you can bring even from shvacha produce, from non top rated, not aleph produce. What does he do with Atzacha? We're going to leave about Rabbi Nemer Kan Eretz, Nemer Lahalon Eretz. It says Lagabi the Bikurim Eretz, and it says Lagabi the Shivas Aminim Eretz. Ma'alon Shvach Eretz Avkan Shvach Eretz. Just like Lagabi Bikurim, which is what we Meshabeach Eretz Yisrael with, it's coming to tell you that this is all that the Bikurim also is only from the Shivas Hamin, because he holds that even though it says Merashis that it should be from something better, it doesn't. Even though Rashi had said before that it means Shivas Haminim, it doesn't mean something better. We don't know which better, so we need Eretz to tell you which better thing is that. It's the Shivas Haminim. Vidach Eretz Meretz. The other one says, no, you learn that out from, it says Eretz, and it also says Me'eretz. So you have two things you can learn out of. V'idach Eretz Me'eretz le mashmalei, and the other Madama doesn't hold Yedarshan Eretz and Me'eretz. Dr. Mor, Tani Chodo, Shebegag Shebechur B'Sha'atzes HaVashina Mevi V'Koira. One man, the Amr says, that which came, right, that Rabbi Yochanan had said, Rabbi Yochanan said him heavy like Kiddush. So the fact of the matter, Tani Chada, Shebegag, that which is grown on a roof or in a rune or in a pot or in a ship, maybe V'Koira. One brisa says that you can bring it as Bikurim, and you read the Kriya that is supposed to be said, that you say you brought your Bikurim. There's the parsha in the Torah that we read. The Tani Dich maybe the other man says you can bring it, but you don't read it. So Bishlam, this is a Charisaiser Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says you can't bring from anything that's not ideal. And here we're saying it's a machlekes. One mandam says you bring it with a kriya, and one mandam says you bring it without a kriya. But they both say you bring it. So Bishlam Rish Lakish gag kasha. Why do we have one brisa says you do bring with you do do with a kriya with a gag, and one says you don't? Hab begag demara, hab begag the base for the bias. One is talking about a gag of a cave, which is basically a regular field, so therefore it produces perfectly fine produce. So you do it with a kriya, but a gag of a bias, it doesn't produce such good. So you can't say that I brought the best. If you don't do the kriya, churva, but he holds that actually you could bring even something that's not ideal. You just don't do the kriya. Churva lekasha kamba churva avuda kamba churva she'ein avuda. Let's talk about a churva that they did the work on and it made it that it's able to produce fine produce, and the other was talking about where it doesn't produce fine produce. So you just don't do the kriya. If there's a hole in it, so it reaches the ground, so it's like growing in the ground. A svina shalcheres, when it touches the ground, somehow it can be yonik, it can draw sustenance since it's earth, right? Cheres is made out of earth, so the sustenance can reach from the ground. If it's talking about a beached boat, and it gets basically nutrients in the ground. El Rabbi Yochanan kasha. Rabbi Yochanan, it's schwer. How could we say such a thing that it's kosher to use one of these not such a good type of tvua for bikurim? So Gemara Tanohi, even according to Rabbi Yochanan, he agrees it's a machlekes Tanoim. One man the Amma says that non-ideal bikurim is good, and one says it's not good. The Tanya, shebegam shebechurva maybe v'koira. If it's in a roof or in a churva, you bring it and you read. But if it's in a pot or in a svina, you don't bring it at all. So this man holds like Rabbi Yochanan. He says you can't bring it even without a kriya. You don't bring it at all. So this is the mandama that Rabbi Yochanan, he's being samech on that time. The Mishnah continues. You don't bring all these things except from the best. Amalei Yuchnu Mamra LaMoshe. Yuchna and Mamre were two of the chatumim that Pari had. But Moshe said, I'm going to do wonders that prove that the Rebbeinu Shalom is, if you don't let the Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to show you Motzei. So they said to him, these two sorcerers, Tevenat Machlas La Parayim. We had said La Parayim. We had said in the Mishnah that Aparim was the second best place to get Tvua from. So they said to him, it's like bringing wheat to the center of wheat. It's like bringing stocks to Wall Street. Or you bring potatoes to Idaho. So they said you're bringing kishuf to Mitzrayim is like bringing wheat to Aparim. Amlahu. So Moshe back to him, Amri Inchi Motzei Yarka Shachal. He said to them, no, Adarabba. If you want someone to recognize the value of what you're selling, you bring oil to Saudi Arabia, you bring potatoes to Idaho, that's Adarabba. I'm bringing kishuf because that's the language that you understand best, and I want to prove to you that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to punish you. Okay, we will stop over here.